I knew this moment was coming. For 3 years I'd watched my in-laws' entitled behavior grow more outrageous with each passing month. Now, sitting at their oversized dining table watching Margaret Porter, my mother-in-law, wave her wine glass as she detailed her plans for my property, I felt an odd sense of satisfaction. It's just wasteful, isn't it, everyone? Margaret continued, looking around the table for support. A 3-story beachfront condo sitting empty most of the year while James works on his little, what do you call it, dear, fish studies? Marine biology research, I corrected calmly, cutting into my steak. The $70 Wagyu beef they'd ordered was overcooked, but I kept that observation to myself. Same thing, my father-in-law Robert chimed in, not looking up from his phone. Point is that prime real estate needs proper use. Family use. My wife Sarah shifted uncomfortably beside me. We'd discussed this possibility last night. She knew what was coming but had agreed to let me handle it my way. After 10 years of marriage, she trusted my judgment. We've got it all mapped out, my sister-in-law Amanda declared, pulling out a floor plan she'd obviously spent hours creating. Mom and Dad get the master suite, obviously. Tom and I take the second floor with the kids. Sarah and James can have the guest room on the ground floor. It's smaller, but you're hardly ever there anyway. I took another bite of steak, chewing slowly as Amanda's husband Tom nodded enthusiastically. The kids are already excited about having a beach as their backyard. We've enrolled them in the local school for next semester. And I've hired movers for next Saturday, Margaret announced triumphantly. They'll handle everything. James dear, just leave a key with the doorman before you head to work. The table fell silent, waiting for my response. I wiped my mouth with the napkin and reached for my phone. Actually, I said quietly, your timing is perfect. I just got the final permits today. I turned my phone around, showing them the official documentation. The Ocean Conservation Institute is converting the entire building into their new research station. Construction starts Monday. The silence shifted from expectant to stunned. What do you mean research station? Margaret's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. The whole building, I continued calmly. All 12 units will become the East Coast's premier marine research facility. Labs, observation tanks, research offices, educational center for local schools. It's quite exciting, but you only own one condo. Robert sputtered, finally looking up from his phone. Actually, I pulled up another document. Atlas Marine Enterprises owns the entire building, has for the past 2 years. We bought out all the other owners at well above market value. Atlas Marine, that's your company? Tom asked, his face paling. I nodded. One of them. The holding company that manages my research facilities and conservation projects. Research facilities, projects, plural. Amanda's floor plan crumpled in her tightening grip. 7 research stations along the East Coast now. The beachfront property you're discussing will be number 8. We're doing groundbreaking work on coral reef restoration and sustainable ocean farming. The grants and private funding have been quite generous. Margaret's face had turned an interesting shade of red. But you're just a marine biologist. You work at that little university lab. I smiled. I do work there. I also own it, along with the marine science programs at 3 other universities. That little lab has developed 5 patents for sustainable ocean farming technology in the past 3 years. The licensing fees alone are quite substantial. But you drive a 10-year-old Subaru, Robert protested, as if this somehow invalidated everything. It's reliable and good for field work. I shrugged. I prefer investing in research rather than luxury cars. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. She was trying not to smile. This is ridiculous. Margaret stood up, wine sloshing dangerously. That property belongs to the family. We've already made plans. No, Mom, Sarah spoke up finally. That property belongs to James's company. And those plans you made, without asking, they're not happening. But, Amanda was still clutching her crumpled floor plan. The kids' school enrollment, I'd cancel that, I suggested. Though if they're interested in marine science, we're launching an excellent educational program for students next spring. They'd be welcome to attend. For the standard fee, of course. Standard fee, Tom croaked. $2,500 per semester per student. We're a nonprofit, but quality education isn't cheap. The silence that followed was broken only by Margaret collapsing back into her chair. Now, I continued, pulling up another document on my phone. Since we're discussing property, there's something else you should know. The commercial building that houses Porter Investment Group, Atlas Marine acquired it last month. Robert's face went from red to white. My company's building. Yes, we'll be honoring all existing leases, of course, though there will be some changes. The new environmental impact standards will require significant upgrades to all tenant spaces. Your office will need about $300,000 in renovations to meet compliance. $300,000. Robert's voice was barely a whisper. Don't worry, we're offering very reasonable financing options. Though given Porter Investment's current debt ratio, you might have trouble qualifying. We could discuss alternative arrangements. Alternative arrangements. The wine glass in Margaret's hand was shaking visibly now. Yes, for instance, I've been wanting to expand our educational outreach program. Robert, your experience in financial planning could be valuable, teaching basic business skills to marine science students. Starting salary would be $50,000. 50, I make 10 times that now. Maid, I corrected gently. The SEC investigation into Porter Investment Group's handling of client environmental impact disclosures concludes next week, doesn't it? I imagine your income will be adjusting significantly. The silence in the room was absolute now. Even Sarah looked surprised. This part I hadn't told her yet. You knew about the SEC. Robert's face had gone from white to gray. I make it my business to know about potential risks to my properties and investments. Just like I know about Amanda's plans to launch a competing research project using stolen data from our university labs. Amanda's floor plan fluttered to the ground as she released it. How did you? Your laptop isn't as secure as you think it is. And our cybersecurity team is excellent. They flagged the unauthorized access attempts months ago. We've been monitoring since then. James, Sarah said quietly beside me. Maybe we should. You're right. I nodded, standing up. We should go. It's been a long day, and I have an early meeting tomorrow with the construction team. Wait, Margaret's voice was desperate now. You can't just. We're family. Yes, I agreed, helping Sarah with her coat. We are, which is why I'm offering options instead of just pressing charges. I suggest you all take some time to think carefully about your next moves. Are you threatening us? Robert tried to sound outraged, but his voice shook. Not at all. I'm giving you opportunities. The same kind of opportunities I had to work for, while you all dismissed me as the poor marine biologist who married above his station. Remember last Christmas when you explained to everyone how I was wasting my potential on fishes instead of getting a real job like Tom's middle management position? Tom flinched at that. The difference is, I continued, my opportunities come with two requirements: honest work and respect. You all need to decide if you can manage those. I picked up Amanda's crumpled floor plan from the ground and handed it back to her. Though I'd suggest finding a new hobby. Architectural design might not be your strength. Sarah and I walked to the door in silence. As I opened it, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Margaret, the wine you're drinking. The vineyard that produces it is another of my holdings. We're converting it to sustainable organic farming next month. Prices will probably triple, but I'm sure you understand environmental responsibility isn't cheap. The door closed behind us with a satisfying click. In the car, Sarah was quiet for several minutes before speaking. The vineyard too. Bought it last year when your mother made that comment about me not appreciating fine wine. Seemed fitting. And the SEC investigation of Dad's company is very real and very serious. But I may have overstated the timing. We have about 3 months before it becomes public. 3 months to see if they're willing to learn respect and honest work. The educational program position is genuine. So is the need for experienced financial planning instruction. The students would benefit. Sarah nodded slowly. And if they refuse, then the SEC investigation proceeds on schedule. Amanda's corporate espionage attempt gets reported, and they all learn about consequences instead of opportunities. You're not what they think you are, Sarah said softly. No, I agreed, pulling into traffic. I'm exactly what they never bothered to see. A man who believes in working hard, investing wisely, and treating people with respect. And owns half the coast, Sarah added with a small smile. 7 research stations so far, I corrected. 8 once the construction finishes. Though I suppose we'll need to find somewhere else for vacation now. We could always use the ski lodge in Vermont, Sarah suggested innocently. I glanced at her. You know about that one too. I know everything, James. I'm your wife. I also know you've been waiting for them to try something like this with the condo. 3 years of watching them get more entitled and disrespectful. I figured it would be either the condo or the vineyard. The vineyard was a nice touch, Sarah admitted. Mom's going to have a breakdown when the prices go up. She could always apply for the new sommelier position we're creating. Starting salary is only $40,000, but it comes with valuable life lessons. Sarah's laugh filled the car as we drove home to our actual home, a modest 3-bedroom house near the university. The house that her family thought was a sign of our financial struggles, but was actually just a convenient location for overseeing millions of dollars in research projects. Tomorrow would bring either humble apologies or angry threats from her family. Either way, I was prepared. Success isn't about who has the biggest house or the newest car. It's about doing meaningful work, building something valuable, and teaching people here sometimes the hard way, about respect. And if that teaching occasionally involves buying their favorite vineyard or exposing their financial crimes, well, that's just part of the curriculum. 3 days after the dinner revelation, my phone buzzed with the first text from my in-laws. It was Amanda. Can we meet? Alone, please. I studied the message while sitting in my university office. Through the window, I could see students heading to the marine biology lab. The lab that bore a modest ocean sciences department placard, rather than my name, despite my ownership. Coffee shop across from campus, 2 p.m., I replied. Amanda was already there when I arrived, nervously shredding a paper napkin. Gone was her usual designer outfit, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. She'd been crying. The university terminated my research position, she said as I sat down. They found out about the data theft attempt. Yes. Did you? I didn't have to. Your access attempts triggered automatic security protocols. The university has strict policies about intellectual property theft. She crumpled the shredded napkin. I was desperate. Tom's company is downsizing, and Mom and Dad's financial advice cost you your savings, I finished. Because Robert's investment strategy was focused on hiding his SEC violations, rather than actual market analysis. Fresh tears welled in her eyes. How long have you known about Dad's company? Since the beginning. It's why I never took his investment advice, despite all the mocking about my simple portfolio. The portfolio that made you rich, she whispered. The portfolio that funded research and conservation, I corrected. The money was never the point, Amanda. Making a difference was. She was quiet for a moment, watching students pass by outside. The kids are devastated about the beach house. They were so excited about having a private beach, yes, not about marine conservation or ocean science. They're just children, James, who are learning their parents' values, I noted. When was the last time you took them to the aquarium, or taught them about protecting ocean life? Amanda looked down at her shredded napkin. We took them to SeaWorld once. Theme park entertainment isn't education, I said quietly. But that educational program I mentioned, it's real, and it includes family involvement components. She looked up cautiously. You'd still let them, if their parents demonstrate the right values going forward. Starting with you, Amanda. What exactly were you planning to do with the stolen research data? Her face flushed. There's a private company. They offered me a consulting position if I could provide insights into your coral reef restoration technology. Corporate espionage for ocean harvest industries. I nodded. Yes, we know. They've been trying to replicate our sustainable farming methods for years. You knew about them too. I own 15% of their stock through various shells, enough to block any major moves against us. I also know they're 3 months from bankruptcy unless they can steal someone else's technology. Amanda's hands began shaking. I could have gone to jail. You still could, but you have options. The educational program, that's one. We also have a legitimate research position opening. Lower salary than corporate espionage pays, but with real potential for advancement. If you're willing to earn it, why would you give me another chance? She whispered. After what I tried to do. Because you're here, I said simply. Not plotting with your parents or hiding behind lawyers. Here, admitting mistakes, showing concern for your children's future. That matters. She wiped her eyes. Mom and Dad are talking about legal action, about the building purchase and the lease terms. I know. Their lawyers contacted my lawyers yesterday. It didn't go well for them. What happened? They discovered that Atlas Marine's legal team includes 3 former SEC prosecutors who are very interested in investment fraud cases. The lawsuit threat was withdrawn within an hour. Amanda actually laughed, though it was shaky. You really did think of everything. I had 3 years to prepare while watching the family dynamics play out. Your parents' behavior made planning easy. And Tom, do you have plans for him too? Tom is a competent middle manager who's never actually harmed anyone. His main flaw is following your parents' lead instead of thinking independently. The construction company handling our research station conversion needs project managers. If he's interested in honest work, there's a position available. She stared at me. You're offering both of us jobs. After everything, I'm offering opportunities to rebuild with dignity. What you do with those opportunities is up to you. And Mom and Dad have bigger problems coming. The SEC investigation isn't just about Robert's company. It's about 20 years of investment fraud across multiple firms. Your parents will need to decide if they want to cooperate with authorities or face the consequences alone. Amanda's face paled. 20 years. Your father's pattern of hiding environmental impact data goes back to the 90s. The SEC has been building their case for a while. I just helped point them in useful directions. By buying his building, by gaining access to records that were supposed to have been destroyed. Robert's not as clever as he thinks he is. She sat quietly for a long moment. The research position, what would it involve? Initially, data entry and basic lab work, the same way I started. If you prove trustworthy, it would advance to actual research roles. And the educational program for the kids starts with weekly marine biology classes, includes supervised beach activities, conservation projects, basic diving lessons when they're old enough. Real education, not just playing in the sand. Amanda nodded slowly. When do you need an answer? Take 48 hours. Talk to Tom. Think about what kind of future you want your children to see modeled. Just remember, this offer only exists right now, while you're showing genuine reflection. If you go back to your parents' approach. I understand, she said quickly, and thank you for even considering giving us a chance. I stood up. Everyone deserves a chance to change, Amanda. Even entitled in-laws who one day I would never amount to anything, because I spent my time playing with fish. She winced. Mom's exact words at my wedding. Yes, right after she complained about the honeymoon Sarah and I took to study sea turtles instead of going to Paris. The sea turtle research that led to your first patent, Amanda realized. Life's interesting that way, I agreed. 48 hours, Amanda. Choose wisely. I left her sitting there, still clutching her shredded napkin. As I walked back to my office, Sarah called. Mom's on her way to your office, she warned. She's been drinking. I smiled. Actually, she's already here. Margaret Porter was indeed waiting by my office door, swaying slightly and clutching an expensive handbag that perfectly matched her shoes. Some habits die hard. You're destroying this family, she announced as I approached. Good afternoon, Margaret. Would you like to have this conversation inside my office, or should we continue entertaining the students in the hallway? She glanced around, suddenly aware of the curious looks from passing undergraduates. Fine, inside. I unlocked my office door, my deliberately modest office that helped maintain the image of a simple professor. Margaret stalked in, taking in the small space with a sneer. All this success you claim to have, and you work in this tiny room. I work wherever the research takes me, I replied calmly. usually on boats or in actual labs. This is just for paperwork and student meetings. Robert's lawyers say you've trapped us, that you deliberately bought the building to force us out. The lawyers recommended dropping all legal action actually, rather quickly, because you threatened us with the SEC. She dropped into a chair, handbag clutched like a shield. The SEC investigation exists because of Robert's actions, not mine. I simply chose not to help hide those actions. He's your father-in-law, who's been stealing from investors for 20 years. Family doesn't excuse crime, Margaret. She took a flask from her handbag, a flask I recognized as coming from the vineyard I now owned. The irony was perfect. We'll lose everything, she whispered. You might, unless you take the options I'm offering. Options? She almost spat the word. You mean surrendering to your control, working for you like charity cases. No, I mean earning honest livings and learning respect. Very different things. By teaching at your precious research center, for a tiny salary, by contributing actual value instead of just taking from others. Novel concept, I know. She took another drink. And if we refuse, then the SEC investigation proceeds. Amanda faces corporate espionage charges, and you all experience natural consequences. Your choice. You're enjoying this, she accused. Actually, I'm not. I'd have preferred you all learning these lessons years ago, through simple observation and self-reflection. But you chose arrogance and entitlement instead. So here we are. Sarah put you up to this. She's punishing us for. Sarah, I cut in firmly, knew nothing about my business holdings until recently. She trusted me to build something meaningful while you all mocked my career choices. The difference is, she saw me for who I am, not what I could give her. Margaret's hands were shaking now. And who are you, really? The same person I've always been. A marine biologist who wants to protect our oceans and teach others to do the same. The money and property are just tools for that mission. Tools you tried to take without asking. The beach house will be a research station. End of discussion. But the educational program I mentioned could include grandparent participation components. If certain grandparents decide to learn new values. She stared at me for a long moment. You're really going to make us work for forgiveness? No, Margaret, I'm going to make you earn respect, starting with respect for yourselves. A week after my office confrontation with Margaret, the family dynamics shifted dramatically. Robert Porter, once the proud patriarch who sneered at my fish studies, was facing the reality of his situation in my conference room. The SEC has enough to push for jail time, his lawyer explained, sweating slightly in his expensive suit. Mr. Porter's cooperation is his only viable option. I sat quietly at the end of the table watching Robert's face cycle through anger, fear, and finally defeat. Sarah held my hand under the table, her grip tight but steady. How much time? Robert asked hoarsely. Without cooperation, 8 to 10 years minimum, with full cooperation including testimony against other firms involved. Possibly no jail time, but significant fines and a lifetime ban from financial services. I'd lose my license, Robert whispered. You lost that the moment you started hiding environmental impact data, I noted calmly. The only question now is whether you lose your freedom too. He looked at me with something new in his eyes. Not hatred or resentment, but a grudging recognition. You knew, all these years, you knew what I was doing. Yes, and you were building this case against me. No, I corrected. The SEC built their case. I simply made sure certain documents survived your attempt to destroy evidence. The same way I protect endangered species, by preserving what others try to eliminate. Sarah spoke up for the first time. Dad, take the deal. Help make this right. Robert stared at his hands. And then what? I'll have nothing. No career, no reputation. You'll have options, I said quietly. The same options I offered everyone else. Honest work, teaching others, rebuilding with dignity. Teaching me, your experience could be valuable. Teaching students what not to do, how to spot financial fraud, the importance of environmental impact transparency. A cautionary tale has educational merit. He barked out a harsh laugh. Teaching kids about my failures. teaching them about consequences and redemption, I corrected, while helping with legitimate environmental investment strategies. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Porter, given the circumstances, this seems like a remarkably generous offer. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Margaret, she told me about your conversation. Said you're not just punishing us, you're trying to fix us. I'm offering opportunities to rebuild. Whether they fix anything depends on you. And Amanda, Tom, have accepted positions with the research station project. They start next week. The kids begin their marine science classes on Saturday. Something like pain crossed Robert's face. They accepted your help before even knowing about this. They chose to learn and grow. Sarah said gently. You can too, Dad. Robert looked at his lawyer. How long do I have to decide? The SEC wants an answer within 48 hours. Mr. Wilson's offer of employment seems to have a similar timeline. I stood up, the same timeline I gave everyone else. Choose dignity and honest work or face the consequences alone. And if I cooperate, work with the SEC. Take this teaching position. Then your grandchildren get to see redemption instead of disgrace. Your choice. I left them in the conference room, heading to my next meeting. This one was more pleasant, missed overseeing the initial construction plans for the research station. The architect was explaining the redesign when my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Mom's at the vineyard. She's making a scene. I smiled slightly. Security cameras confirm she's there. Yes, she's demanding her royal wine collections be released before the organic conversion. Perfect timing, I replied. Head to the vineyard. Bring the kids. The kids. Why? Their first marine science lesson just got moved up. Time to learn about organic farming and ocean conservation at a vineyard. Everything connects to ocean health, Amanda. Your mother's about to help demonstrate that. An hour later, I pulled into the vineyard parking lot. Margaret's luxury SUV was parked crookedly near the entrance, and I could hear her voice carrying across the grounds. These wines are meant to be exclusive. You can't just change everything to some hippie organic nonsense. The vineyard manager, Maria, was handling it beautifully. Ma'am, the conversion plan is final. Atlas Marine Enterprises is very clear about sustainable agriculture practices. Atlas Marine, my son-in-law's ridiculous fish company, has no business running a vineyard. I stepped out of my car just as Amanda arrived with her children. Perfect timing. Actually, I called out, ocean health and wine production are deeply connected. Who would like to learn how? Margaret spun around, face flushed with anger and probably several glasses of product testing. Her grandchildren, however, lit up with curiosity. How are fish connected to wine, Uncle James? 11-year-old Emma asked. Excellent question. Maria, would you like to help give these future marine scientists their first lesson? Maria, who had been briefed on the family situation, smiled warmly. Of course, kids. Did you know that everything we do on land affects the oceans? Why does Reet? For the next 20 minutes, as Margaret stood in stunned silence, Maria and I taught the children about agricultural runoff, soil conservation, and how traditional wine-growing techniques could harm marine ecosystems. Emma and her 9-year-old brother Jack were fascinated. So organic farming helps save the fish? Jack asked excitedly. And the coral reefs and the whales. And everything in the ocean. I confirmed. That's why Atlas Marine doesn't just study oceans, we help protect them by changing how we do things on land too. Is that why you bought Grandma's favorite vineyard? Emma asked, showing that brilliant perception that made me have hope for the next generation. Yes, I admitted. Sometimes people need to see how their choices affect the things they care about before they understand. Margaret made a choking sound. Amanda put a hand on her mother's arm. Mom, she said quietly, maybe it's time to learn instead of fight. Learn about fish and wine, and about consequences. I interrupted. About how everything connects. About leaving a better world for your grandchildren. Emma tugged at Margaret's designer blouse. Grandma, can you come to our marine science class on Saturday? Uncle James says we're going to learn about sea turtles. Margaret looked at her granddaughter, then at me, then at the vineyard stretching out around us. Something shifted in her expression. Will the class explain more about why the wine has to change? Every class connects ocean conservation to daily life. I confirmed, including how our choices about food and drink affect marine ecosystems. She squared her shoulders, years of social training asserting themselves. Well, I suppose if my grandchildren are learning about it, I should understand it too. Does that mean you'll stop yelling about the wine? Maria asked diplomatically. Margaret flushed. I apologize for my behavior. I'm not quite myself lately. Change is difficult, I acknowledged, but necessary. Ask Robert about that when you see him later. Her eyes narrowed. He was meeting with lawyers today. He's considering his options, like you're doing now, like Amanda and Tom already have. The whole family, you're really rebuilding all of us. I'm offering chances to rebuild yourselves. I corrected, starting with understanding how everything connects ocean's vineyards, choices, consequences. Emma tugged my sleeve. Uncle James, can we go see the fish tanks at the research station next? I want to learn everything. I smiled at my niece, then at my mother-in-law. Knowledge works that way, Margaret. Once you start learning, you want to learn everything. Ready to try? Margaret looked at her excited grandchildren, her daughter's hopeful face, and the vineyard that would no longer be her status symbol, but could become her education. I suppose I could attend one class, for the children's sake. Of course, I agreed. Everything we do is for the next generation, whether we're protecting oceans, converting vineyards, or rebuilding families. As we walked the children through the vineyard, explaining sustainable agriculture, I sent a quick text to Sarah. Your mother just joined the marine science program. Robert's likely taking the SEC deal. The family reconstruction project is proceeding on schedule. Her response came quickly. You're turning my entire family into ocean conservationists. No, I typed back. They're choosing to become something better than they were. I'm just providing the tide to lift their boats. 6 months later, I stood at the podium for the grand opening of the East Coast Marine Research Station, formerly known as my unnecessarily large beach condo. The transformation was more complete than even I had imagined. Sarah squeezed my hand as I surveyed the crowd. In the front row, Emma and Jack wore their junior marine scientist uniforms, badges gleaming. Behind them, Amanda and Tom sat proudly in their project management and research assistant attire. The changes in them over the past months had been remarkable. Margaret and Robert occupied seats near the middle, their expressions a mixture of humility and quiet pride. Robert's testimony had indeed spared him jail time, though the fines had been substantial. His new role teaching financial ethics and environmental responsibility to marine science students had given him an unexpected sense of purpose. Margaret had surprised everyone by becoming one of our most passionate organic wine advocates. She'd traded her designer suits for practical field wear, and now led tours explaining the connection between sustainable agriculture and ocean health. Her wine knowledge, once used for social status, had become a powerful educational tool. Today, I began my speech. We celebrate more than just a building. We celebrate transformation. The crowd, a mixture of scientists, students, and local supporters, listened intently. 6 months ago, this was just a luxury beachfront property. Today, it's a center for learning, research, and conservation. But the real transformation isn't in the building, it's in the people. I gestured to my family. We have former corporate executives teaching ethical business practices, former social elites promoting sustainable agriculture, former skeptics becoming passionate advocates for ocean conservation, and most importantly, we have children learning to see the connections between all living things. Emma and Jack beamed up at me. This center represents second chances, new beginnings, the opportunity to choose a better path. Just like the oceans we study, humanity has remarkable capacity for renewal if we make the right choices. Robert nodded slowly, understanding the deeper meaning. Every person here has a story of transformation. Some chose it willingly, others needed gentle persuasion. A knowing chuckle rippled through the family section. But all of them proved that change is possible, that it's never too late to learn, to grow, to become something better than we were. Margaret dabbed at her eyes with an organic cotton handkerchief. Today, we open these doors not just for research, but for redemption. not just for science, but for second chances. Every person who walks through them will have the opportunity to contribute to something larger than themselves. Amanda squeezed Tom's hand, both of them thinking of their own second chances. The oceans teach us that everything is connected. Our choices, our actions, our opportunities to make things right. This center stands as proof of those connections. I paused, making eye contact with each family member. 6 months ago, some people saw this property as just a luxury to be claimed. Today, they help run the programs that make it a force for positive change. That's the power of transformation. Sarah stepped up beside me as I prepared to cut the ribbon. I declare the East Coast Marine Research Station officially open. May it serve as a beacon of hope, learning and second chances for generations to come. The ribbon fell away. Applause erupted, and in that moment, watching my once entitled in-laws join in the genuine celebration of something bigger than themselves, I knew the investment had paid off in ways no financial report could measure. Later at the reception, Margaret approached me with a glass of organic wine from her own educational collection. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" she asked quietly. "From the first day we dismissed you as just a marine biologist. I planned to make a difference," I corrected. "You all just provided unexpected opportunities to expand that mission. By turning your greedy in-laws into ocean conservation advocates, by showing people the value of honest work and genuine purpose, the ocean conservation was a bonus." She smiled, a real smile, not her old social mask. "Well, you succeeded, though I still can't believe I'm teaching grape cultivation and ocean ecology instead of planning social events. Life takes unexpected turns when we learn to see the bigger picture." Robert joined us, his teacher's badge sitting where his Gold Society pin used to be. "The next financial ethics class is full," he reported proudly. "Turns out students really want to learn about environmental impact fraud from someone who actually committed it." "See," I said to Margaret, "unexpected turns." Sarah wrapped her arms around me as we watched our transformed family mingle with scientists and students. "Happy with your investment," she whispered. "Best returns I've ever seen," I replied, "though not the kind you can measure in dollars." "No," she agreed, watching Emma enthusiastically explain coral conservation to another child. "Some investments pay off and changed lives instead." The setting sun painted the research station in golden light, its walls now covered in educational murals instead of luxury facades. Sometimes the biggest transformations start with the smallest choices, like letting entitled in-laws learn their lessons instead of just shutting them out. After all, even the ocean gives second chances to those willing to learn its lessons. The end.